there, and welcome to the Strong and Mighty podcast. I am your host, the Power Lady, Laarni Mulvey. Join me and my guests where we share our thoughts, experiences, and journeys to find inner strength that allowed us to become the most powerful version of ourselves. This podcast is a place to feel empowered, inspired, and encouraged to know you are stronger than you think you are. For all news updates, follow me on Instagram at Laarni Mulvey or at Strong and Mighty Company, or on Facebook at Strong and Mighty Company. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Strong and Mighty podcast. I am your host on this podcast, Laarni Mulvey, aka the Power Lady. So today, I'm just going to jump right into it because this is part two. This is part two of his story. And just to give you more background, Chad and I, we met through a podcast and we've become really good friends. And so now the tables are turned on the Strong and Mighty podcast where he is the guest and he is sharing his story of perseverance and addictions and all the great juicy stuff that's been going on in his life. So without further ado, I have Chad Smith, part two.
Oh, she's being all nice and gentle on that. So we were toot, and I'm going to give him more of a toot because we're on like number 6 now. So let's just toot this intro here. So I am Chad Smith. I'm the host of the podcast, C's Get Degrees. Let me pause and breathe on that one. On the other end of it, I am the co-host. I'm being selfish enough to say co-host of the podcast YouTube show, Let's Talk Java, hosting the person on the other end here, Miss Laarni. What else is there? Oh, yeah, I am also the owner of the brand CH Brands Ltd. And let's just say straight up social media hustler. There's all kinds of things I'm doing.
That's a great way to put it. Social media hustler. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. 500 things. I'm sure probably be an author down the road, whatever else. There's 500 things coming down the pipeline here. So yes, I am back. I am actually the guest now. So all of us that like to host, I need to shut the what up. Well, we can swear I could shut the fuck up. She can turn around and ask me questions. So I'm not in host mode now, and I'm gonna sit back and eat strawberries before she asks me some questions.
Exactly. You better eat some of those strawberries. So okay, from part 1, we talked about like the beginning, your childhood, and the obstacles that you were going through that, and kind of like what brought you to some of your addictions through your like 20s and stuff. So we ended part 1 with starting in your 20s, and like you're starting to talk about like your divorce and stuff. So let's start there and then continue on. So start with I guess Eau Claire was something you were talking about. So let's start there and then continue moving forward.
Okay, so now guys, I'm gonna do a little weather term here. So we were in a severe storm warning in the first one. We're just gonna brew it up and brew a little tornado here on this one because my life was decent growing up, but a lot of us, we just kind of thought it was normal. So a lot of the good, heavy, deep stuff is gonna come now. So get used to the tornado, guys, because it's coming. All right, so my 20s. So we're gonna pause, reset here. Focus.
20s.
And start scene. All right. So I think I ended at like 2021, somewhere in there, 22. Getting engaged, somewhere in there. So guys, so I ended school in River Falls, Wisconsin, which is out by the Twin Cities area. If you're not familiar with that, look at Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we don't say Minnesota out there. It's just a goofy thing. It is Minnesota, guys. All right. So I was about 20 minutes from the border on the Wisconsin side. So obviously when I left school, I pretty much stayed in Western Wisconsin. So there's a few stops in between, but we ended up living majority of the time during when I was engaged or married. Majority of the time we're in Eau Claire area within, 5-10 minutes of Eau Claire, somewhere in there. So So obviously we built up the struggles and all that stuff, built up trying to succeed on our own, trying to make it as a couple. And to be honest, guys, like she was 2 years younger than me, so it's not an age thing or whatever, but she didn't know what she was planning on doing. She kept changing her degrees. So majority of my 20s, I don't think she graduated college, and she's not dumb. It's just, she was not liking where she was going to college. So she kept going. So, I think she finally graduated at like 27, 28, somewhere in there with a 1-year degree through childhood, that's perfect. That's where she loves to be now. But through the process of it, what was happening was I was trying to make it because we were a couple living on, well, at least, you guys know in the prior that I have boatload of student loan debt. So we were trying to make it on one paycheck or one income. So a full-time income and a part-time income from ages 22 to 29. So people kind of just laughed how I word it this way, but out of my years, so I'm going to be 35 this year, between 22 and 35, I only made 50 grand or more 3 times. So I was stuck at 36,000, 40,000, 45,000, 40,000, whatever it is. So we were sending out pretty much whatever's coming in was turning around, going out in bills, with rents and student loans and all that fun jazzy shit that's going with it, 2-car loans, all that stuff. So before even getting into the marriage part, you can already understand that was putting a damper on a relationship. Well, during the process of getting married, this I actually really don't tell people, but obviously I like to make a rush and try to chase a rush, and I have addicting personality. So a friend of mine got me into options trading through a broker in Chicago. And I should have known at the beginning, but I actually took some of the marriage money and tried to throw it in a corn option, which means I was trying to buy a price in the fall. Actually got out of it and lost. And when you're trying to pay a wedding, guys, $800 is actually a big deal. So that one I kept hush hush. She kept it hush hush. So we just kept working and working and working. And but what happened? Obviously, we got married. We went through the process of it. You should know if your marriage is going to work, because usually your in-laws are really involved with the process of it. Her mom was involved with the process of the planning, and I'm going to tell everyone who plans on getting married or was married or whatever. So wedding is for both. There's a very spiritual thing behind a wedding, but ideally it's the wife's day. She's dressed up, she's prepped up, she's shined up, she wants to get shown off. So ideally let her shine. And obviously I was fighting with the budget and all that fun stuff. So we had a small wedding. So like 110 people showed up. During the process, when we walked down the aisle, her dad kind of just went, here you go. Like, didn't even say nothing, didn't even say any words. You literally could drop a pin on her side of the family side. And then my side was partying, hooting and hollering in church. So I have not a wild side, but we're very animated, very fun, very exciting. So it's pretty much taken two, separate families and just stuck them together. And it was, not saying the redneck and the rockers, I don't want to use that term, but that's pretty much what it was. So from day one, that part was already a power struggle, because obviously I didn't have her parents on her side. So going through 6 months in, her biggest thing is she wanted to get pregnant, which obviously every girl wants to be mother. I get that. So I was
I'll beg to differ.
Almost all of them.
I'll beg to differ. So okay, continue. I just had
Laarni and I are different. Laarni and I are different. We're, we enjoy what we do, and if it comes, it comes.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, so she was, at the beginning, we didn't know what was going on. So like she was starting to take Clomid, which is a fertility drug. And going through the process of it, I wasn't really mature enough to really understand that whole process. So at the time, my mind was, I need a farm. because I need to prove her fucking father wrong, and I need to prove everyone else wrong in my life that said I couldn't do it, and a city boy and all that fun stuff. So I had a huge drive to go buy a farm just to show, and we're not going to edit this, but all the motherfuckers that told me wrong, I was going to prove them wrong. Nicely say it. So like, I'm very driven, I'm very wound, but I'm very gentle and kind now to a point. So all the decisions and stuff, she's like, I was getting married. She's like, I want to have a kid. I want this. So you have a huge power struggle. So what was going on is we would hit the week of go time, and I would go take care of myself before the day before. So I wouldn't have enough numbers for the day of not having a kid. And so the first go around, she's like, crying and whatever. Waited a little bit for like a year into it. We moved to another house trying to get it because she wasn't happy. Halfway through, she's like, hey, we're going on another treatment. I would go through the same situation, except the doctors are like, you didn't get it wrong the first time, so let's up the dosage. Yeah. Not for me, but for her.
Yeah.
And, at that time, we were taking, obviously I was taking vitamin E and stuff to prep just that, have a kid. So there's a lot of stuff that people try. It goes in and whatever. So you name it, that cabinet was full of stuff for actively trying to have kids. If I remember, I got to remember this blatantly. So I don't know if it was that one or the one after where she was taking paternity test strips, whatever strips. It's not the pregnancy test, but it's the other one.
Like ovulation.
Exactly, that one. So every time I would go bathroom, I look down, there'd be stupid little pink white slips. And I'm not saying it that way as a mean way. It's just when you're in the routine, you just look and shit just keeps getting thrown out. Well, obviously Clomid kind of takes
a toll.
If a guy takes it, it makes him bigger and it blocks all the estrogen. If a girl takes it, it's like taking a freaking battery charger to you and just like blast you off. So the second treatment, it was a double dose, and there's many, many times that I would go in the bed and she was just literally crying, or go in the bathroom and literally crying. And it was a two-way street. Like, we were so stressed out that it wasn't matching up. Obviously I didn't like the direction we were going, so I was doing my thing, trying to make it not a kid.
Yeah.
And so like we went through that go around, and not saying she was catching on that, but she was kind of getting a little depressed.
Yeah.
So she slipped into a huge depression on top of my depression that was not watched over or whatever. So like we would come home and you could drop a freaking pin. You can do whatever you want. Like, we had a phenomenal dog. She was phenomenal, like, to both of us. You could drop a pin and one of us would blow. Just because I would see the debt, she would see the debt, she was seeing the Clomid, she was not seeing the baby, blah, 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 blah. And then in that same process, I got offered a position through DuPont, which was a startup company type thing. Well, DuPont's not a startup, but it was a program that they started up with. So they gave a shit ton of money for people. I'm going to say that correctly. They gave a contract that was like 10 times more what it should be. And I got loaded with, in business, we call it 1099, which means you're off the employee. And how they worded it in the contract was, we're giving you startup money to get you going, and you got to hit these numbers. Well, and then they didn't say how long or what was the period of the program. So they just ran around and gave 60 of us these contracts. Well, during halfway through the year, the market's completely crashed. And here, 60 of us were sitting on a big contract that they wanted us to pay back because they were canceling the program. Yeah. So at the end of that program, I went from $60,000 a year to $12,000 a year, and back in debt, $48,000 on top of my student loans. So in that process, I'm like, okay, so how am I going to get out of this? And I started talking to a friend. He's like, hey, go talk to this bankrupt lawyer. He's like, you don't need to do it, but he's like, just, have him prepared and get ready and whatever. Well, so I was getting that pressure of business on top of her. And she's like, hey, let's move back to where we lived in Elk Mound, which is, some of you guys are familiar with that area, it's literally, 15 minutes away from where we lived at the time. It's in between Menominee, Wisconsin, which is UW Stout, and UW Eau Claire. It's a little tiny country town right in the middle. So we moved out there. She was all happy and go lucky. She was trying to kind of do it naturally of trying to get pregnant. So we were doing, I think she was seeing a chiropractor. She was seeing some other things. So there was multiple things that she was trying, and it still wasn't working out. Well, when you get 2-3 years into trying, the girls pretty much are just locked and loaded. So what was going on is she was calling home, crying, complaining. Mom was getting on her ass. On top of that, we had contracts that, like my contract was having issues. So I went into insurance. The insurance company I worked for, 2 days in after get hired, the owner died in a motorcycle accident. And then 3 months later, the other owner had a stroke. So he was completely out. So I was at a office location for a year with no ownership because they were out. And then I had everyone in there throw me under the bus except for 2 people.
Oh, wow.
They're like, dude, you came in a shitty situation. We know what's going on. We know. And it was the people that weren't there for many years. They're like, they're throwing you under the bus. We already know it. So we're just going to keep you going and prove them wrong. So I built up my insurance business with them because I knew some people prior coming in the industry. And every week I would get a call from the owner because he had a stroke. He'd be like, hey, so-and-so saying you're not hitting the numbers and blah, blah, blah. So I would take that stress home and go on top of that. So it was a complete like snowplow that came and just kept plowing all the fucking stress and just rolling it. Pioneer was not gentle on making sure they were getting the money back. So I had to sign a retainer with the lawyer, which is about $2,500. So in that process, I think she started working full time, and she's in childcare. So any guys that understood childcare, it's only like $11-12 an hour. In a typical area up here, you pay a boatload for childcare as babysitting and all that stuff, but the people that are working don't get paid well. So in the process of that, she kind of just paused on having the kids, and we're rolling into that February, and everyone just we were just down each other's throat and whatever. And finally I just pulled the plug and went to the lawyer. I'm like, all right, dude, what do I need to do to get all this shit unsecured? So if I do want to wipe it, I just call you, drop it, pay it, whatever. And he's like, all right, do this, do that, do this, move this. You got to get on credit cards. Well, just gave me the normal routine of the unsecured debt versus secured. So I opened up a couple of credit cards just to start moving some of the student loan debt. So let me explain this to people. Student loan debt cannot get wiped.
Nope.
But if you change the coding on the loan from student loan to business loan or credit card loan, if you have more than 6 months on that or a year, you can wipe it. You just need to change that coding for a year. So obviously I'm from the streets. I'm very creative. So I just said in my mind, without even her permission, saying, fuck it, I'm a claim. So I started moving all the debt. And rolling this one into this one and all this stuff. And February came, she just completely lost it because I went to the lawyer just to kind of explain it. And first words out of his mouth are, hey, you want to sign the papers for the bankruptcy? And I'm like, excuse me? And she was right there and she fucking lost it. And from February I was already seeing counseling for my mental health for like a year into it, but February came, we started seeing marriage counseling. We started going, and we thought, cause we never went on a honeymoon because, money was tight. So I'm like, all right, whatever, we'll just keep rolling. So we just kept working. And obviously working, no play, you tend to, put a wedge in a lot of things. So come July, June, July. Okay, whenever my cousin got married here in June. Had been that one. And then my buddy's wedding was literally like the week after. So we took a week off, or like a long weekend, just to kind of come over here and relax and do whatever. So we took 4 days off, went to Door County, and literally the drive over and the drive back, you can tell something was up because she was not talking. She was, curled up. She was kind of benched up, real snappy, kind of like, hey, get this shit done and over with. I want to hang with my friends, whatever. And people that are in a bad relationship, or you're near the end, something's up. Just like my parents said, you didn't know who was blowing up at each other.
Right.
You walked in the house, you would only be there for a day, and you had to leave because there's so much tension in it.
Yes.
And my sister was the same way too, but we're going to leave that out for a different topic for a different day.
Right.
But so like, no one would visit. Her brothers would visit. That would be it. My parents would come up, loving care whenever they came up. We ended up going to Red Wing. And she worked at a farm at the time. So like we went down to Red Wing, go fish, and all of a sudden she just flipped on my stepdad saying, I got to get back. I got to deal with this fucking calf, blah, blah, blah. And just weird, like snappy stuff. Like he was cooking food that one day and she didn't like it. She came in and just blew up at him.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, like completely just went left field. And so coming to fall, when did it occur? Coming in September, October, right? Okay, let's just say October. We came home for a fish fry in October, and I didn't know this. She was just I knew about the fish fry. We went there, we had fun. We were all sitting there chatting, and I didn't know this, but she was sitting in the corner kind of texting her now husband.
Oh.
While she was dating me, or still married to me. So they were just chatting back and forth, and she's usually not a reserved person. She's a chatty Cathy. And she was sitting on a chair just texting away. And my mom would say, hey, how's everything going? She'd be like, all right, good. Just kind of roll snappy. And so that was middle of October of 17. All of a sudden, gun hunting came in state of Wisconsin, guys. That's middle of November. And obviously, I knew Coleman was coming because she would slip it out on an accident. She'd be like, hey, I'm, getting ready to go on a treatment, whatever. I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. Like I would time it just right to know exactly when it was. And guys, when you get it, the cycle, you're smart enough to realize when the days are that it occurs, because you take the pill and 14 days later, boom, 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 boom. It's time. It's go time, whatever. And I will be openly honest. Sex is fun. When you're doing that, you're in the middle of trying to have a kid. It becomes so much fucking work. You hate doing it.
Oh, yes. Yep.
So for all of us, it's kind of like let's just get it done and over with. Girls are fun on it, and I'm going to laugh and smile on it because when you get very emotional, it gets very intense. We'll just smile and just say hello on that. But November, that Friday, obviously I woke up and she was off and did whatever. Yeah, we tried that morning. I left, went to her parents, and started deer hunting. Well, Saturday morning rolls around, and I woke up, and it was like this dark, gray, foggy, rainy day. I'm like, this is fucking weird. Like, just dark. Not like when the fog rolls in, it's kind of white-ish. It was literally like the black and white on Wizard of Oz. I still remember as plain as day. Sitting in a tree stand, it was literally like I'm sitting in the scene of Wizard of Oz. Just that where the witch is coming to town, just black and white, that gray, gnarly. And a deer comes walking in and click, the gun jams up. I'm like, what's going on here? Because this is not normal. Next bullet, click, nothing again. Went through the third one, finally got it down. I'm like, all right, whatever. Something's going on here. That afternoon, I went out. My brother-in-law at the time's like, coming in November, guys, obviously we're at our parents' deer hunting, but let's back this up a little bit. So like every gun, my gun jammed. I took my stepdad's gun up after that. It jammed. So like the next day, that Saturday afternoon, I took her brother's gun out and it jammed. So like I had 3 guns that are typically spot on. Jam up, jam up, jam up. So like Saturday was dark and gray. And I called, I'm like, okay, usually I'd check in or like I'm at her parents. So I'm like, hey, I'm, parents call, whatever. And here I call and she was out. I'm like, okay, that's cool. You know, whatever, you're hanging with your friends. That's all right. I'm like, hey, what's up? Blah, blah, blah. She's like, hi, how's it going? I'm out with friends. Just kind of like real short. I'm like, huh, okay. I'm like, all right, whatever. You know, didn't really get it. And so I went out Sunday morning, same situation, gun jam, yada, yada, whatever. So I packed my shit up at about noon and went home. Well, I didn't know in the process that Saturday night she was messing around with her now husband. Yeah. So they had some fun, which continued in the week after. So like I was still with her. She was still sleeping at our house every day. What was happening that Tuesday night, I went to have counseling. She went to jump on her friend or her boyfriend her husband now at the time, and then raced back. So I would get a text saying, hey, you going to counseling? Yep. And I'll see you in an hour or whatever. So she would go have a quickie, come back home, not even tell me. And then rolled into Thanksgiving. And I knew at that time something was up because you could just tell. Like I knew it was done at you could tell at Thanksgiving it was done. So like we went Thanksgiving, she completely blocked, ignore everything. We laid together, whatever, but like she completely just rolled on the other side. You knew something was up. Like she was cold as fuck. We'll just word it that way. And then you guys I know how to date can kind of read people just right. So Thanksgiving, she's like, you going to your parents? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'm whatever. We drove separate. So I knew I would be either deer hunting or kind of visiting them anyways. So she drove back home and Ashley purposely got pregnant.
What?
Yeah. So she drove home. We had Thanksgiving Friday night at her parents', if I remember correctly. And the best part was actually quite funny. I remember this blatantly. Like her cousin came in from Washington, first Thanksgiving in a long time with her. And she comes running up to me. We're chit-chatting outside, and this puts a big smile on our face. But she comes up, she goes, yeah, I got divorced by that guy. He kept cheating around and whatever, and just kind of got pregnant by his now girlfriend or whatever. And here she's doing it blatantly looking at her cousin. And she didn't even say no. And she's like, yeah, I hate it when that happens too, blah, blah, blah. And I looked at her cousin. I said, yeah, I'm like, if that occurred, I'd be done. You know, I'm like, I'd be like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. And she's like, yeah, she goes, that sucks too. And she's like, that's kind of rough too. Well, here she was doing it behind her cousin's back and kind of lying to her cousin. And the patterns up to this, guys, when you're marriage counseling and you're starting to see a partner, guy or girl, whatever, starts lying in marriage counseling, you know it's done. And the week after came, we kind of went back home. That Tuesday or Wednesday, we had marriage counseling, and boom, I went in. She had coolers and shit in her car. I was assuming, going grocery shopping, whatever. So like I jumped in. She got kind of nervous. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Whatever. She's like, I'll see you when I get home. She goes, yeah, okay, cool. So she went in there, and within like 2 minutes, she's like, I want a divorce. And she didn't even tell me about being pregnant or nothing.
Really?
Nope. Going through the whole process of it, I'm like, hey, I'll meet you home. And she's like, yeah, okay. And
wow.
On the way home, she's like, I ain't coming home. I'm like, what do you mean I ain't coming home? She's like, well, I'll see you tomorrow, whatever. So I get there and the house was fucking empty. Like all of her stuff was gone. So like she came and kind of emptied everything out. And I'm like, okay, well, on the way home, I realized I've always wanted to move back home. Like there was something, well, let's reiterate this a little bit. Actually, no, it actually came that way. So like come December 1st or when did we file? December 1st. During the process of moving home, I called my boss or driving back at my place that day. I called my boss up. I'm like, hey, dude, I'm getting divorced. And he looked at me. He goes, hey, man, he goes, I know you were kind of asking about moving home down the road. He's like, go take the chance now. And these guys were the best. And I'm not even throwing any of them under the bus. We fought back in the day, but they were phenomenal brothers, phenomenal owners. Like people hate them for certain reasons, but they were very loyal to me, very, very good. And they treated me phenomenal. Like they didn't even cut out any commissions or nothing. They're like, hey, dude, don't worry about it. Go have fun. Go get healthy. Like super, super good. Very, very awesome.
Yeah.
And he's like, you come in for the month, you put in the work, you put in the effort, you don't call in sick. He's like, go get yourself ready to get pointed to go home. He's like, we'll pay you 100% commission or whatever it is. Our split was. He's like, if you show up, he goes, but if you start calling in sick and start doing that, we ain't paying you. He's like, so show up, get everything going. So I was lining up interviews and shit while I was at work, still writing. I think I had my best month ever for them. But we're just, going in the process of it and working my way home. And I don't remember. I think it was either Christmas or the week before Christmas, whatever it is. I came home. Well, I moved home pretty much New Year's Eve.
Okay.
That year. So January 1st, 2018, I was at my parents' house. I moved in the basement. Obviously, you have to start over. Not too keen on it, but whatever. It is what it is. During that week of moving, because I would bring more stuff home like every weekend. I don't remember the time frame. It was around Christmas. I totally forgot. Well, obviously I went into my tablet because I have Messenger. So guys, we message, talk people Messenger. For some odd reason, something pointed me to click to check, see who was all logged in. So I just went up there, clicked, and here was her account. I'm like, as a nosy husband, just to see, ex-husband, whoever, just see what's going on, see what the process was. I clicked it, and here I saw the pregnancy test.
Oh my God.
So December 3rd, I saw the pregnancy test to her now husband. And she literally filed for papers 2 days before. So she was 3 weeks pregnant, 3 weeks pregnant. So when I'm like, is this mine? She goes, if it was mine, I will literally kill it and go get an abortion. I'm like, excuse me? She goes, yeah, if it is your baby, I will get an abortion because I don't want to deal with your shit.
Oh my Lord. Wow.
Yeah. So, that was obviously you get that in there and fighting for battle and divorce and all that fun shit. So obviously that put me in a spiral back to drinking because I was losing all kinds of weight. I was down to, I think 145, 150. I dropped like 25 pounds in a matter of a month because stress. I wouldn't eat. So I would grab a little granola bar I wanted and I would throw it up a little bit later or whatever. I didn't eat. And, so I moved home. So I figured I will do this. I'll try this. So I'm like, you know what? Back in college, the only way I gained weight was eating pizza and drinking beer. Because I was just fighting to get the weight back. And I realized a month into it, I can drink a lot of beer and eat a lot of pizza and I still wasn't gaining weight. So what do? You keep drinking more beer and keep drinking more pizza, whatever. So I think I would go through 2 cases in a week. And it wasn't like the small ones. It was the silos, which are 20 ounces.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I would have 5-6 silos a night, not even on top of going to the bar. So that's equivalent to what, a 12 pack?
Yeah, I think so.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And it still wasn't phasing me. And
wow.
Kind of went through the year. I don't remember when I switched over to vodka, but I think it was the year after. So I went through the whole year of drinking beer and obviously I puffed up a marshmallow.
Yeah.
Finally stress got divorced, got done, whatever. And that's when I didn't know the mental health was such a big deal because obviously you slip into depression. So I'm on meds now to contain it. And I was then at the end during the process, but so you just kept drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking. Well, obviously you're not healing. So you keep drinking and, going out and sleeping over at random houses and screwing people and having a Tinder date break a window in their basement, trying to get in. I save that story for a different day. Yes, it was fun after because she was crazy. But I lived life. My divorce day, I remember this blatantly, and she's such a great friend now, but I'm like, hey, we ain't going to date. I'm getting divorced. I'm going to Menominee. I want to party. I have off the day after. She's like, sure, come on down. Let's have a great time. I'm like, all right, cool. We went to the brand. Yeah, I'll say this story out loud. I'm gonna keep her name off it. But she's also divorced now, and she was at the time, whatever. But it was more of a friendly gesture. We went downtown La Crosse. I didn't know I booked the room at the top business hotel in La Crosse.
Oh my
brand
gosh.
new hotel. brand new hotel Wednesday night, and you walk in, it was all suits, and she comes walking in, and she's like, "You sure you want to do this? Because they're all business owners." I'm like, "Oh yeah, fuck yeah."
You're like, yes.
I kept them up till 5 a.m. Sorry, toot toot. Woo! That's a woo moment right there. All right, now back home here. So you just kept drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking, but in the process of it, I was so good at hiding it that I could go to work at an insurance agency, which involved a lot of drinking and partying and stuff. And the town I worked in is a phenomenal town, but it's known for going out for Friday night fish. It's known for cracking a beer at 4. It's known for, whatever. It's a small country town, so shit happens. The owner was very, we don't talk right now because it kind of ended a little sorely. At the time, he was very, very good, very genuine, very, very nice stuff. Nothing bad about the guy. Like, I had a blast being there. It just wasn't for me at the time. So I would go to work, go home, drink, go out to the bars, wake up at 6 o'clock again, go to work, finally be on not hungover at 9 o'clock, go all the way till 9 o'clock again, start drinking at 3 and go crush it in 6 hours, do it again. So it was a repeating cycle for 2 years. But so I would go out there, party, go sturgeon spearing, go at the bar, get drunk, drive home drunk. Thank God for the rumble strip. A year into it, all of a sudden I'm like, something's not right. So I got to give up beer. And my mom kept hitting. She's like, dude, you got to clean up a little bit. I'm like, I know, but I'm stubborn. So I'm not going to listen. So I'm like, okay, the pain. She goes, I get you went through pain. She goes, I get we're all divorced here. Like, my parents remarried. So she's like, I get the process of it. She's like, I went through it. She goes, you're in the party stage still, but she's like, you have to clean up. I'm like, don't get me wrong. Like, our family drinks, like, but she's like, I think it was the mother hen thing, where it was Mama Bear protecting the roost, saying, get your shit straight.
Get together. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, all right, whatever. So like, I cleaned up, and I don't know what the hell caused it in Budweiser, because I drank Budweiser all the time. I love that beer, but we'll keep that quiet now. But I shook for like a month. Like, I literally had the shakes. Hardcore shakes.
Through your withdrawals a little bit.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, a month later, I'm like, hey, let's try Tito's. Something with Tito's I liked very, very well, and started grabbing the 24-ounce cups. And I did the same repeating pattern I did with whiskey, because with Tito's, you don't get filled up like whiskey or like beer.
Right.
So here I was dropping 3 24-ounce mixers with no ice in, with half of Tito's. So during the process, I kept going, and what was happening is I was actually killing 3/8 probably a bottle of a 175 a night.
Wow.
So a 175 would probably last 2-3 days for me.
Wow.
So I would go through like 3 liters of Tito's a week.
Yeah.
And so on a weekend, I'm not bullshitting on this, I would grab a 1. I would start at noon because I didn't need to go anywhere, and just continuously drink through the day. And then at 9 o'clock, my buddy would be like, hey, dude, we have a band out at the bar. Come to the bar, come till 2. So I would literally drink probably 14, 16 hours a day straight.
Mm-hmm.
And there was many nights where I would end up partying, and I wake up the next morning, there was literally not even an inch in that one. Just all day long.
Wow.
And I don't know what caused whatever the situation. Mom kept saying, hey, clean up, going too fast, blah, 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 whatever. And all of a sudden, like, I had a family member come home visiting, and something deep down is like, okay, something's not right here. Because I kept watching my grandpa slowly lose his battle with Parkinson's.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly by surely, you could just see him kind of cripple up and whatever. And during the end, they all came over for October. And I did something, and I brought that 175 over to my aunt's, dropped it on the table, and it was like half. And I'm like, they're like, oh, that's good for a week. I'm like, no, that's a day. And all of a sudden I got that deer in the headlights look, like, a day. Like, they both are like, that's a day. And my mom's like, oh yeah, no, that's a day. And Went through all that, pretty much had like an inch left of that, jumped in the car, drove home again. And during the process, I remember doing it, but what happens when I was drunk, I was get so loosey goosey that I would just do random dumb shit. And I ended up taking a picture of my cousin or something without her permission or whatever it was. And I sent it to, at the time, a friend's sister that she worked with, that they don't have a good relationship. Like they hate each other.
Oh gosh.
I didn't know it at the time. Woke up the next morning with a text from my cousin saying, "Cuz, if you ever fucking do that again, I'm going to disown you."
Oh my gosh.
Not, nicely saying that.
Right.
Well, that was mid-October. So like a week later, I visited that girl's sister, did the same thing with the bottle. And literally like a week later, I couldn't even taste it. It was going down so good. And I was just like, you know what, screw it. So Halloween came, I cleaned up because deep down, I was watching multiple things. I was watching my grandpa pass away. I was watching my family relationship deteriorate because they were seeing me battling. And then the third one is I realized my grandma was starting to open up of like the back history. So like during that summer, that fall, my grandma would, I don't remember, we were at like Waverly Beach or whatever it was. She's like, my mom's like, "Hey, go talk to grandma, go grab something for grandpa, come back." I jumped in the car. We started driving. Within 2 minutes, my grandma's like, "Don't end up like my brothers." Excuse me? She's like, "Don't end up like my brother, my cousin." Like, what did they do? They said, and she didn't know the whole details of what happened with my ex-wife, but she's like, my brother got divorced because his wife slept around and got pregnant. And this was back in the 30s and 40s, like 50s and 60s. Because he never left the bar. Literally died in the bar. Like, excuse me? Like, I knew nothing. Like, nobody knew nothing because my family's very quiet. And she's like, my cousin did the same thing. Their wife slept around with someone, got pregnant, stayed in the bar. So I'm like, huh. So we just kept going, whatever it was. And light bulb didn't go off until I cleaned up. And come November, December, somewhere there, like my grandpa was going downhill. So like he was in and out of nursing homes and just, it was going bad. And he ended up passing away in January 5th, somewhere in there. So he made it through Christmas with all of us just to say hello. And then he passed away. And I was about a month clean. And finally, like my sister was home. I started talking and she started bringing up like stories and shit from the past. And I'm like, I don't remember that because I drank so much. And like, I seriously don't remember half my childhood because like, I seriously think I did major damage in my brain just by like
all the drinking that you did in that short period of time.
Yeah.
Short period of time-ish.
And she was starting to back up. She's like, "Hey, his brother died of drinking too much in the liver." Like, what do you mean? And my mom's like, "Yeah, no." She goes, "Uncle, uncle whoever, so and so, I'm gonna leave his name out of it. I know who it was, but she's like, he died from the colon cancer, but it came from his liver."
Oh my God, really?
I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, he drank. She goes, literally, he drank so much. He goes, he was a phenomenal uncle, like phenomenal.
Yeah,
but she goes, he drank so much that throughout the years that it went into his liver and went in his colon, and he passed away because of a bacterial infection. Whatever it was, he had cancer, but that's what they labeled it as. So here I was cleaning up and we started backtracking and we noticed that obviously my dad didn't know his physical father. So we had no family history on that side of it. My grandpa had, not family history of it, but it was in the family. So like my grandpa had the same depressional issues because all of his friends were passing away and obviously throw the whiskey and shit in there. He made it till 83. So, I mean, like he lived an awesome life, and then you look at like my stepdad's side, I was seeing some, like family members having addiction issues and all that stuff. So here I was wrapped around with depression and addictions on top of my own shit. So like, I didn't know this until I was older, but like my mom took us to her best friend's babysitter, and what I thought was a migraine, she was actually getting tripped out on Vicodin. So like she was having a migraine, but on top of that, she would just damn near OD on Vicodin.
Oh,
So like everyone around us had addiction issues.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, it looks like the pattern is
Yeah.
that addiction, addictive personality, or something like, that portion.
Yeah. And mine was drinking. Mine heavily was drinking, which went into porn and all that stuff. Like there's a lot of things that occurred with drinking, but drinking was the divider one that pushed it.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously slowly by surely the porn went away after it more I cleaned up and all that stuff. So but yeah, no, like that was part of the marriage too. So that put another wedge in the marriage too. And guys, girls, stay away from that shit because it will dampen up, it will make everything numb and you will not feel but drinking was my big issue. So like I started cleaning up, and come January, whatever it was, there was a time where I'm like, this process sucks. I know there's something better, because I knew like in the process of November that last year, me drinking hard, and my relationship with God, all that stuff. So I kept seeing the verse, be vigilant, be sober, be something else. I don't Bible study, guys. I just believe in him and I do stuff. But there's a verse where it's be sober, be vigilant, or be vigilant, be sober, whatever the wording is. I've seen it like 7 times on top of my mom going clean up, and my best friend that literally saved my life in Eau Claire. She's like, you got to clean up, you got to clean up. So like I had many forces saying clean up, and I'm like, whatever. And then all of a sudden the Steve Harvey one said, God can't bless you until you take something off the plate so he can make room for you to bless him without something. So all of a sudden it just clicked, and I'm like, all right, so here's my chance to start over from my divorce and completely do everything I want to do and completely change my life around. I'm like, this is my last shot to do it. Well, obviously all of us, keep it sane. I had all my fights because my stepdad would come behind me and pop beers open while I was trying to ignore being drinking on eBay. So like every time I would sell something on eBay, he would come behind me. Oh, hey, you missed this song? And just pop beers open left and right. A month later, 2 later, we had a fish fry during lockdown. Don't tell the government that. And he would scream to my mom, hey, go have him make me a mixed drink. And he blatantly knew I was clean and I had issues with it. So like we have a relationship, but it's not as strong now because of that whole rattling of, hey, you should have been there at gun hunting, because we were all drunk and it was fun. And, I remember my mom turning going, you dumbass, he's clean. He doesn't want to be there then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like just that whole process of going into getting clean. So like I got focused on my relationship with God in February, going back to church, get everything situated. I started taking an alpha class in February with actually my now pastor and some friends. At the time, I didn't know it would be my friends, but just kind of say, hey, all right, dude, you laid me out. You wanted me to be sober. Here's my soberness. Take me where you need me to take me. And kind of opened up saying, all right, now lead my life, that side of it. And I'm not going to, toot and get preach here, but there's a point where you just get so sick of fucking struggling, it's past your control. Just let him take care of you. Let him, her, whoever it is, let him take care of you. And I just said, all right, screw it. So go. And February came before lockdown, and obviously I was friends with AJ for a couple of years, and I met Dan and AJ again. And they're like, dude, with all your drunk stories, we want you to do podcasts. And, me and you already know the story, but your listeners hasn't. So they actually said, we want you to come on. We want you to record, and we'll see where it goes. Well, ended up being, I was a 2-parter like I am for you. And it was big. Actually, it blew up. And Dan's like, dude, start your own. Like, I ain't starting my own, my mouth, fuck that. Since I'm a pretty handful of a guy to begin with. And AJ's like, no, dude, start your own. They didn't tell me how big theirs, AJ's was or nothing. Like I knew it was a little bit, but not how big it was. All of a sudden I'm like, all right, screw it. So I started my own and got rolling. And just like me and you can contest, like once you get into this industry, guys, you have no control what's going to happen. And the dam just opens up. And you're like, oh, I'm getting wet. All right. So now not even a year later. It's going to be a year on March, or it's going to be a year on May 2nd was my first one I ever launched.
Wow.
And I am, give or take, I don't even know what it is today. I'm getting near 2,000 downloads. I'm averaging about 300 a month, which is good for starting out. We're not near, the 3,000 or 30,000 a month. We're not there yet.
There yet.
There yet. Spoke around the world multiple times with you. Is part of a phenomenal coffee show because Crystal said, "Hey, you love coffee. Let's start a show."
Okay. Let's not give away the next part. I think we're going to make this a part 3-er.
Okay.
Because there's just the part 3 part.
We'll explode on everything.
Is like it's like the future. Like this is, like what's going on now. And there's so much we have going on right now. And I think when we come back for our next episode in your recording, we need to take it from the struggles to the triumphs.
Yeah,
I feel like that's where it is right now. In this story,
the struggles are still here, but guys, if you want to know what's coming in the rocket, come back for part 3.
Yes. So I think like you talked about like your marriage and your divorce and trying to prove people wrong and your power struggles, and then you talked about like the patterns in your family. Like there is so much like now, I feel like there's like that balance is shifting. Like you were just saying, there's still struggles, but it's almost like how to deal with it. How to confront it. You know how to flip it into the positive.
You get in so I've learned in the process, especially with alcoholism and depression and stuff, like I still fight it. I'm still on medicine for depression, but there's way more good than there is bad.
Yes.
You learn with the process. You also learn, and I didn't even go down this rabbit hole, but I've learned I'm dyslexic, so I can't comprehend when I read. That was part of the process too, but that wasn't the driver of it. You learn through all this stuff of what it is to be courageous, but you also learn just your inner strength and the inner strength of
boom, toot toot.
Yeah, toot toot for the 1,000th time. It's an inner strength, guys, that this stuff becomes such like you learn to take life from future to day by day. And you wake up, you're like, how do I do good today? How do I do good today? What's my best thing? Yes, mind you, yes, you're like me yesterday where I lost my fucking mind just because you have 500 things going, you know how to control it, and boom, it just goes. But the inner strength to continue to keep going, to look positive and all that stuff. Once you figure that out, you understand that, yeah, there's going to be days I'm good. There's going to be days I'm bad. And you accept it. All of a sudden, that's when the power comes.
So do you think this section of your life, this 20s to now, to like, the 20s to what we just ended with?
33, 34, somewhere in there. Yeah, so 12 years of my life.
What is that? Is that your like, your ending lesson? Is that what you learned from that time?
I've learned that addiction is like, here's the best analogy I'm going to say. You're driving down the road and it's almost like a police chase. Like you're in the car just leaning, actually doing good, not the bad. And addiction's that cop car kind of running behind you. And you're just going, and going. All of a sudden you turn like, I lost him. And then, 2 seconds later, the little fucker turns around the corner going, haha, I see you now. And not to make a joke like that, but it is what it is. Like, he's always behind you. Yes, you're willing to accept it, but it's pretty much the devil saying, hey, I'm going to get you. And you're going to be like, fuck you. I ain't going to do nothing. I'm going to, keep running. So I've accepted I'm an addict. I'm an addict because now you can return. You can understand people putting a mask on and you understand how you can hide it and all that stuff. Like you learn that life.
Yes.
And becomes so helpful because you can look at people and you can just tell by their eyes that they're hurting. And the ones that need the most are the ones that smile the most because they like to layer it. So I could literally look at someone and smile, and you can get a little glimpse in their eye. You're like, okay, something's not right. And it's just by the smile you can catch it of saying, okay, I'm not going to ask because it's not that right time, but that they're going through shit just by how you look at their eyes.
Exactly. I 100% agree. 100% agree. So on that note, let's carry on the conversation in part 3 of the triumphant.
This is the fireworks, y'all. This is your July 4th.
Yeah. This is, part 3, there's just so much we're going to talk about. I feel like we should talk about your relationship with God.
Yes.
That's going to be in that part 3. And where you're at now. Don't say anything. I know you want to say something. Don't say anything. We'll leave that for part 3.
Oh. Actually, hey, when we record in part 3, that's a question mark because
that's a great question because we have some other things we have to record, sir.
We're going to drop the little thing here. I think we have to make a special recording for part 3 after March 11th because I will be 35. And whatever that big rumbling that's inside of a few things can be settling down by then. If one of them works out, I'm cool. I know one's working out to begin with. If the other one works out, that's super cool. If not, fuck it. It's still number one, still the better one. So That's the way I'm going to look at it. I will be 35 then. Family will be done. So a lot of my earthquake in my head will be kind of cleaned up. So secondly,
and
the recording for the thing where she just threw me under the bus. I'm going to steal this because I know it's your show and, whatever. I like to one-up you sometimes. All you guys, we got this phenomenal coffee show. Breaking news. Let's Talk Java. We'll be hitting the road this summer.
That's right. I am actually going up to Wisconsin. Woohoo! So that's going to be fun. And where are we going to be doing it at?
Oh, one of the booms. All right, guys. So early June, pay attention. We are going to be potentially doing a live shoot for Let's Talk Java featuring kind of a surprise that I'm part of, but we have a sweet location. We're going to have a live crowd. So we're going to be rolling and goofing and having fun. And hint, it might feature Oshkosh, it might feature downtown Oshkosh, and it might feature favorite coffee store that's in Oshkosh, that's downtown Oshkosh, that everyone in Oshkosh knows. You don't because you're not in Oshkosh. I do because I'm in Oshkosh twice a week.
But toot toot,